Part of the Christian life includes a time for growth and learning away from the hive of daily activity. Perhaps no better place exemplifies that experience than the Naramata Centre, a church training centre in the Okanagan Valley, where learning in community is the focus for youth, adults, and families. No one leaves Naramata Centre without being touched in some way by the experience, and summer programs start to be filled by the January before. Tonight we take a look at the story of this renowned centre on The Pressure Point.
Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, someone bless these seeds I sow. Someone warn them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Pulling weeds, kicking stones, we are made of dreams and bones. I feel the need to grow my own, for the time is near at hand. Rain for grain, sun and rain, I'm away to nature's shade, as I tune my body and my brain to the music of the land.
Good evening. Welcome to Pressure Point. My name is George Searcy, and our program tonight concerns religious education. In a changing world, one of the places where pressures are changing very quickly is in the whole field of religious education, as means of communication and those things to be communicated change and move. Our guest this evening is Bob Stobie. He's a member of the program staff at the Naramata Centre for Continuing Education. Bob has been on staff there for a short time, from the pastorate, and now working with program at the centre. Bob, where is Naramata?
Naramata is on the east shore of the Okanagan Lake, about 9 miles north of the city of Penticton.
That's a long way from anywhere. Why would anyone establish a religious centre for continuing education so far from a population centre?
Well, the original intention of those who founded the centre was that it would be a place where people from both BC and Alberta could come for continuing education of one kind or another. And the Okanagan Valley is approximately halfway between Vancouver or the Lower Mainland and Alberta. So it's also a very, in some ways, secluded place, which was part of the intention that it would be a place set apart or away where people could get away from the busyness of their regular routine to do the kind of reflection and the kind of refreshment that can take place when one goes into that kind of a setting.
Has that location, that decision, proven to be a good one across the years?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I think the natural surroundings are one of the things that keep people coming back and back to the centre. We're located in a fruit growing area, of course, and the lake, the beach, the lawns, the fruit trees, the summer particularly, the ideal summer vacation climate, I think contributes very much to people coming back to the place.
How long has Naramata been active as a centre for education?
Almost 40 years. 1947 was the first year it began, with none of the facilities we have now, of course. Began utilizing what I think was originally an old hotel, but at that point was being used as a residence for people who worked in the packing house, the fruit packing house. And the first winter session, or winter class, met there and held their sessions in the basement of the local United Church.
How many people would have been involved in that first winter class?
I don't remember the exact number. I would say you should know. You were there yourself. I think, weren't there around 35 or 40 of you?
25, I think.
25? Mm-hmm.
How much of a site do you have? Has the site grown? Are you still living in the old hotel and
no, we're
classes
certainly
in the
not.
basement?
The centre now has somewhere around 25 acres, I believe, from the beach back several blocks into the village. We have a number of buildings. The old original building, McLaren Hall, is now used mainly for office and administration purposes as well as session rooms or meeting rooms. We have a residence, we have a gymnasium and dining hall, kitchen facilities. We have 32 cottages, almost motel-type units, and we have 2 tent and trailer areas.
So how many people, Bob, at the maximum, how many people could you accommodate on the site for a program?
In the summer, which are our heaviest weeks, we can get close to 300 people on site at a given time. Now that's really stretching our facilities, but we can handle up to that many. We've had many more than that, utilizing some of the village motels and motels in Penticton. For example, when BC Conference meets there, we might have anywhere between 500 and 600 people on site at a time.
That is really quite a story when you think in 38 years you've gone from 25 people meeting in a hotel in a church basement. Now you're up to 350, 400 people with the site that large and that well developed. It really is quite a story. What kind of program now, you mentioned, let's talk about summer program. Is it basically Bible study and church related types of programs?
Oh, there are Bible study courses that are offered in the summer, but I don't think there's a center, at least not that I'm familiar with, that offers as much variety of programming, particularly in the summer weeks as we do at the center. There are courses on the scriptures, peace and justice issues, a lot of arts options.
Say something about that.
About the arts options?
Yeah.
Oh, we can offer almost anything from pottery through batik and wood carving to photography to puppetry. Just a real variety of things that go on there in the summer.
And what does that have to do with religious education?
Well, we believe that it's part of the creativeness with which we're gifted by God, and that as we learn to exercise and to express that creativeness and to reflect upon what that means in our lives, that we're really about a religious venture in a sense.
Do those kinds of things attract people? How many would you have?
Yes, in fact, the 2 summer weeks where we concentrate on the arts, we have arts options almost every week of the summer, but there are 2 weeks in particular when we concentrate on them and offer as many as 16 or 17 different options in one of those weeks. Those are the most heavily attended weeks of the summer usually.
Your summer program runs through July and August?
That's right.
What other kinds of programs do you have besides the summer program?
Well, there are continuing education events of one kind or another throughout the year. One of our heavy months for programming outside the summer is the month of February, when we bring in resource persons from many places in North America for that matter, for events that are perhaps over a weekend or 4 or 5 days in length. And so we'll offer in February '86, for example, 15 or more programs in that month. A dozen or so anyway.
Pick out of a couple of programs from the February slate that you've mentioned and say something about them and how they sort of represent the philosophy and the kind of thinking and the ideology that is there at the school. Would you do that?
Well, one of them is men's and women's issues, led by Beth Glick-Riemann and Robin Smith from the United Church of Canada, which will focus on what it means to be male and female and all the turmoil around that really in our time. What roles we have had in a sense laid on us by our culture and what that means for us. Beth Glick-Riemann is a very young woman in her 60s who we discovered a couple of years ago, who's been at the center to do a variety of program things, and she's going to, while she's there in February as well, do an event for teens and their parents or for people who are working with teens called Not the Best Days. That'll be a program in which young people and those who parent them or work with them are able to explore their feelings around what it means to live in this particular age. I'm thinking also of the week or the 5 days that we'll have with Walter Wink, transformational Bible study. This will be the second time that he's been at the center, and he brings his own unique approach to the scriptures. He's on the faculty at Auburn Theological Seminary, and we'll be doing a follow-up workshop on utilizing some of his technique for people who might like to go back into their home congregations to employ that method.
Do these programs only attract church people, or do they bring people from the community as well?
A real mix of people, George. A lot of them are United Church people or have some kind of link with the church, not just the United Church, because the center is open to all denominations. We have a lot of people from the community as well who may not really have a close relationship or any relationship with a church, and they're attracted to various things. Sometimes I think for them the center becomes a place where they explore and express their religiosity, where they don't get a chance to do that in some of the traditional ways that other people do.
Now you've got these programs, you've got winter, summer, the site. Let's take a moment and look at some of the sites of Naramata. Some pictures from the summer.
Brothers, sisters all around, this is where our garden stands. Side by side we work the ground to have these seedlings grow. Water them with love and care, trust the promise that we share. Keep them healthy and prepare for God's fruit to show. Inch by inch, row by row, gonna make this garden grow. All it takes is a rake and a hoe and a piece of fertile ground. Inch by inch, row by row, summer bless these seeds I sow. Summer warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down.
As we looked at those scenes from Naramata, there were a number of family scenes. Mothers and fathers, children, parents. Programs basically intergenerational through the summer.
Yes, I think that's one of the really unique features about the center is that we not only have, well, for example, we have 1 week which is called Intergenerational Arts, where all the arts options, whether it be wood carving or photography or making puppets or pottery or whatever, are all those options groups are aimed at a mix of children and adults. We not only have that kind of programming, but there's an intergenerational aspect to most of the summer weeks when part of the day at least is spent in activities, usually the evening after the adults have had an opportunity in the morning to be in their groups and the children the same. There's a time every day when families get together as families and activities are geared intergenerationally, whether it be games or a singing time or a celebrating time in the gym or a family dance or a worship time. And worship in the middle of the week is one of the important parts of that because it is an intergenerational worship experience on Wednesday in the midst of each summer week.
What kind of pressures do you face as a member of program staff in a training center such as this?
Well, there's the pressure, the obvious pressures of seeing that the programs that we've promised to hold actually come off, because we're responsible in many instances to design those programs and to lead them ourselves or to help lead them in a team of leaders. There's that kind of pressure, knowing that you're going to have 10, 20, 40, 80 people arriving on your doorstep expecting to have an experience which is worthwhile. There's the pressure of getting the resource leaders from literally all over North America for some of our programs, getting those all lined up and in place according to our schedules. We find that we have to plan pretty well a year in advance of events. And so there's a certain amount of pressure around getting that lined up and seeing that those people are in fact going to be there when we want them to be there.
There must be something, though, about not only pressure, but if you're functioning across a whole continent and looking at resource persons, there must be areas of excitement for you.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the people that were names on the titles of books that were important to me are now people that I talk to on the telephone and make arrangements with to have come to the center to lead events over a weekend or for a week or sometimes even longer.
Name such a one.
Oh, people like Sam Keane, Walter Wink, Clyde Reed, others that we're after and haven't been successful in, James Nelson, others that we're after and haven't been successful in getting yet, but we keep on trying. A lot of these people are very busy people. They get their schedules booked up a year, 2 or 3 years in advance, and it's just a matter of keeping on their track and trying to convince them that we have something exciting going on at the center and that they might like to be part of that.
You've had a good deal of expression with regard to programs for adults, for families. What about youth? Is there a youth-centered program? Do you have that kind of program at the center?
Actually, there are a number of youth opportunities. We have youth conclaves, events for teens in the junior high years. We just finished this past weekend an event for youth and young adults. I believe there were close to 200 of them there. And events like that over a weekend occur on 3 or 4 occasions throughout the year. There's also opportunity for young people to be involved in summer staff at the center, where they get training in how to work with children, how to work with groups. They get help with certain leadership skills and then become part of our summer staff, where we do programming with children in the mornings while the adults are in their groups. And that in itself is a valuable experience, and I think often leads to those young people who are part of that going on into leadership roles in other places. We've had a small but a significant program called Tent Makers, where people from local congregations come to get quite an intensive program of training in leadership skills and personal development, and then go back into the field to be placed in a congregation for a period of some months. During that time, they come back to the center for periodic checkups with their supervisors and so on. And at the end of that time, really have a pretty good basis in working with, particularly with youth. And I think the success of that program is indicated in the fact that a number of the people who've been through our Tent Makers program are now finding either part-time or full-time employment in local congregations.
Tent Makers, Bob, is that what you would call a winter session?
No, the winter session is another program, and it's in some ways the most important thing that we do with young people. It's been part of the center's existence from the very beginning. The first program that was ever offered at the center was winter session, although it wasn't called that at that time. But it's now a 5-month residential program for young people, where a lot of the learnings occur through simply being in community with other young people for that period of time, where they're encouraged to explore their personal development, to explore their understanding of themselves and who they are in relation to other people in this world that God has created. The center staff usually provide a framework, a fairly structured framework for the first 6 weeks or so of that program. And then the participants, having gained some skills in communication and skills in self-understanding, are encouraged and given the freedom to select or to choose some resource leaders that they would like to come and be with them for the balance of the time. They contact those people themselves, issue the invitation, see that they get there, host them when they arrive, and share together in the resources that those people bring in a great variety of subjects.
How many people are you talking about, and what age are you talking about?
We're talking about people who have graduated from high school, who are 18 years of age or older. Generally, they have been from 18 to mid-20s in recent years. And we've had relatively small groups in recent years. The last winter session we had was 12 in number, but we would be glad to see more than that. We would take up to 30 at this time in that program. We also offer during that time a week of experience in the inner city, away from the center, where we go down to First United Church in the east side of Vancouver and live in the church there and explore life in that area and make some real discoveries about what it means perhaps to be in some of the disadvantaged positions that people find themselves in that part of the city.
One of the interesting questions has been the question of discipline. As you try to have young men and women together, I've heard that at Naramata there are very few rules, but the rules that are there are pretty well enforced and pretty well understood. That's the way it's going to be. And what I heard was that the rule was basically no drugs, no booze, no sex. How would you respond to that?
There's some things around that we're fairly firm about, but we're much more interested in having that community of young people decide for themselves what it means to live responsibly in community. And that's a struggle, as it is for people anywhere. I sometimes think that people who have members of their family or congregations who send young people to the winter session expect suddenly that their behavior and their outlook on life will change dramatically once they arrive at Naramata, and that's not true. They bring with them all their problems, all their uncertainties, all their questions about life. And they find there a community in which they can explore some of those things and really try to make sense out of their lives as they live in relationship to other people. Sometimes that's a very painful experience. We know that from our own experience in families and in congregational groupings. But it provides the opportunity for people to really learn and grow. Learn and grow in their understanding about what it means to be in loving relationship with one another. And that's often a difficult thing. And often a thing that can be learned, I think most often a thing that can be learned best as we reflect on how our behavior has affected other people and how it's affected ourselves.
Can I push you a little bit with that, Bob? That's interesting and commendable that you let the youth and its community set its own pattern. What happens, though, when the pattern the young people choose for themselves is incompatible with the kind of philosophical commitment that the staff has towards Christian community?
We have a real struggle with that. We have to try to share our misgivings about that or our pain with that as much as we can with those young people. I think it's very much like being a parent of a young person in a sense, in that I think we have an obligation to make it clear where we stand, but we also have an obligation to stand with and for those young people as they struggle out what they're going to do. And sometimes wise decisions aren't made. But that doesn't mean we abandon them. And so there's a very real sense in which we have to live through that with them and be prepared to take some of the flack, because they will make mistakes and we will make mistakes. But that's my understanding of what it means to be in Christian community.
It sounds like a growing kind of a place in terms of Christian Center for Religious Education. That's a very varied and interesting history and points out the long kind of development of the program. Is the center available for other groups apart from the programs you develop?
Certainly. One of the other major uses that our center gets is as we host groups from government, from business, from industry, teachers, doctors, lawyers, who make use of our facilities to run their own programs. So in that instance, we are exactly what I've said, hosts. We provide the facilities, the setting, the services, and invite and allow other people to run their programs at our center.
What percentage of time would be used at the center for other groups and the programs they bring?
I'm not sure I can put an exact percentage on that. It might be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-25%. And those are important programs. First of all, they provide a setting in which people can do important programming. I think they learn things from being with us and catching something of the ambience,
that's
the ethos of the place, which sometimes results in them coming back to other programs. It's not that their programs aren't important, but sometimes we're delighted when they come back and involve themselves in other things that we've designed or that other people are designing.
If there's someone watching this and they would be interested in having a weekend at the center for 10 or 15 people, would that be possible?
Oh, it certainly would, of course, depending on what's already scheduled or booked. But the thing for them to do would be to call the center and talk to Dave or Marilyn Perry, who are our host couple. and who can make arrangements for that for groups that want to use our facilities, and can give them all the information they need about facilities that are available, costs, dates that are available, that kind of thing.
About how much would it cost for a person for 2 days?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, George, because there's so much variation. You have a number of options around what you would do while you were there. You could live in a motel type room and eat all your meals in the dining hall. You could live in a cottage and cook your own meals. In the summertime or in the good weather, you could be in a tent or a trailer and do your own cooking. So there's a great variety around what that cost would be. And it's best to get that kind of information from the people like the Perrys or from the office.
Sounds like a varied, interesting place with an interesting history. What about the future? What are some of the pressures that you see coming down the pipe that will affect the school, the centre, in the future?
Well, we've got the same kind of pressures that are impinging themselves on many institutions or organizations. Rising costs, which in turn influence groups that might like to hold programs at our centre but might no longer be able to do that. And we recognize or realize a considerable amount of revenue from people that come and use our facilities. And we've noticed in the last year or so that our hosting business, for example, is down. We're doing what we can to see about improving that situation by more actively going out and seeking hosted business. But we have a set of facilities there that have to be maintained. It's not as simple as saying, well, if business went down, we would close up part of our facility. That doesn't realize that much of a saving. We want the facilities to be used to the maximum as they have been in the past, and that's a pressure that we're going to have to cope with as costs go up. We're going to have to hustle a bit more, I believe, in order to get the kind of business to fill up our facilities as much as we can through the year, so that we will in turn be able to go on and offer the kinds of programs that we believe are important.
That's the kind of pressure that's in the future. Of course, you're not only aware of pressures, but you're aware of promises. What kind of promises do you see in the whole field that you're serving in the years to come?
I think the Centre has existed from the very beginning, and it certainly exists now to help people explore the meaning of life, both for themselves personally and individually, and for ourselves collectively. And as life becomes more and more complex, there's a fear and a danger in that, of course, which is the bad news, but there's also good news in the fact that when we get together in groupings where people are really committed to struggling with their faith and to making application of that to those issues that confront us on every side, that there's hope and there's promise in that. And I believe that's probably above all else what makes the Centre an exciting and important and a promising place to be, because we have opportunity to do that kind of thing there.
Thank you very much, Bob, for coming. This has been an informative time for us to get a look at Naramata, at the Centre, at the programming, and some of the promise for the future. We don't say good luck as you go back. We say do well. And we trust that you will inherit the whole promise that lies there for the school, for the program, and for the promise that you have in that work. This has been Pressure Point. Thank you for joining us for tonight. We'll see you next week.
Pressure Point would like to thank the staff at Naramata, participants in the Arts Week in '85, and Jim Manley for their help in this program.